Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. What a cute kitty.
Emergencykitten.com. It's the best website. When you need an emergency one, there you go.
Awesome.
All right. April, did you want to introduce anything or?
Well, I'll introduce you a little bit. This is Debbie Luchenbill, who is with MOBIUS and a trainer extraordinaire. And today she is going to be doing your OPAC training. And we are making a recording of this. This is recommended for every staff person who will interact with Evergreen in any way whatsoever, because it's an introduction to how patrons will interact with the catalog, the OPAC, how they'll log into their account and everything. And it also talks about how staff will search, which is really just the same as patrons will. So I'll let Debbie take it away.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're going to get started with the OPAC. And so I have here for you the training database that you have. Here is the basic Evergreen OPAC. And OPAC is Online Public Access Catalog. You'll notice that we have, so for NC Cardinal, of course, this will have some customization. So it's going to look more specific to NC Cardinal and to you all when you go live. But here's the kind of generic. And it opens to the basic search page. So we've got here on basic search, a search box. We've got a drop down where we can limit by type. And that has, a list of different types of things you can search. So we can limit by format. And all of this is related to how the material is cataloged. So what's in the MARC record. And then we have library. Now, when you are live on the system, when you are on the basic search, it is going to default to your system. On this generic training server, it defaults to a consortium level, and we just have some systems and branches and sublibraries. But yours will default to your system. You can always, the patrons can always expand that or click on this All Libraries button, and that will search all of NC Cardinal. We also have two other kind of searches, and we're going to go through those as well. So advanced search takes you to a search that is more detailed that you can do. So you have more search boxes here, you will see, and so just more options. So you still have these formats, keyword, title, author, subject, series, that you can choose. And then you have these drop downs for further kind of specifying how you're going to do your search. So by default, it is contains. So if I were doing a keyword contains search, that means that the results would contain somewhere those keywords that I type in. It also does some what we call stemming. So it would also return, especially with a keyword search, some related terms. So if I were to put in the word evidence, for instance, I would get results that contain the word evidence and also related terms like evidently. So there's a little bit of stemming that way. You also can do does not contain. So if you wanted to exclude whatever search terms you were putting in from your results, then you could use does not contain. So you could do a search for, say, title contains cats, but title does not contain dogs. And then your results would have titles that had cat in them, but would not have any dogs in them. Contains phrase is pretty obvious. Contains phrase allows you to put a phrase where all the words are together. So you could put in search terms if you're just doing a regular contains, put in more than one word, and it would find those words anywhere. And when it's looking for that, it's looking, if you're doing a keyword search, it's looking anywhere in the record. And of course, title and author would be specific to those particular fields. But the contains phrase, the words that you put in, it will look for all of those words together. And so one example that I like to use is the Harry Potter books. Like if you wanted to find the Harry Potter books, but not books that were about Harry Potter or that had Harry and Potter, somewhere in the record, you could do this contains phrase search because all of the Harry Potter books start with Harry Potter and the. And you could use that as a phrase. Or for instance, like Nora Roberts' In Death series. It always has that phrase in death in the books. So you could go ahead and use that as a contains phrase search. Matches exactly does exactly that. So the terms that you put in, then it will match only exactly those terms. So where I talked about the stemming, where it give you related phrases, if I put in the word evidence and use matches exactly, it would only return results that had the word evidence in them. So you would get things that had evidence, you would get things that had evidenced, because that has the word evidence in it, but you wouldn't get those related terms like evidently. And then starts with, again, if you or the patron knows what something starts with, you could put that in and it will only look for that at the beginning. So again, Harry Potter is an example of that. Harry Potter and if it starts with that, then you're not going to get other books that have Harry Potter somewhere else in the record. It would just be at the beginning of whatever it was searching for. You also can add more. First you have and or, so you can connect. You're doing multiple lines of searching, connect with and. So there, if you did like the title contains cats and title contains dogs, that would return results where both cats and dogs were in the title. And then if you did or, title contains cats or title contains dogs, then your results would return things that had cats or dogs, maybe both, but not necessarily. So we just have either or in the title. If you're doing really complex searching, you can add more search rows. So you can have lots of different options. And then you do have those little X's and you can take away search boxes, but you can also just leave them blank. You do not have to take them away. So you could just fill in one line and leave all the rest blank. And then down below that, you have search filters. So these, again, are all based on the MARC records. So how the material is cataloged. So catalogers, you are so important. So we have item type and format and language, audience. So all of these different options related to filtering that we can choose. So if we wanted just large print, for instance, we could come over to item format, or if we just wanted to look at kits, or come down and look for things that are just in a particular language. We also have a shelving location filter. So right now our search library down here is set to the consortium level. So we see shelving locations that are at the consortium level. So whatever level you're looking at in your library, you would see the shelving locations that are relevant to that particular location area. And then, so you did see search library there. Next to that is publication year, and you have a variety of options here as well. So the publication year is if you know what year it's published. Before, if you wanted to look at a particular year and everything before that, or after for a particular year and everything after that, and then between, where you would be able to choose 2 years and look at everything that's in between those. So that's a handy thing when you have, when a patron is looking for something and, they come to you and they want the blue book that they read in 3rd grade. And, 3rd grade was 1983. And so it was already published then, but they don't remember anything else about it. Can't help you with the title with a blue cover, but at least you can do a date range and see what might be there for that. And then you can sort your results here. So you always have the option to change this, how you see your results after the fact. But if you know beforehand that instead of sorting by relevance, which is how many times your terms show up in a record, you can sort by title, alphabetically A to Z or Z to A. Same with author, forward or backward alphabetical. And you can sort by publication date, newest to oldest, or oldest to newest. That's really handy when the patron wants, the newest James Patterson book, and you can't remember which one came out yesterday, as opposed to the one that came out the day before that. You can do a newest to oldest publication date search. You can also sort by popularity, which is a feature in Evergreen that allows you to, so most popular would take into account how often this record had items circulating and placed on hold, and all different things like that will play into the popularity ranking. So if a patron wants to know what other people are checking out, they could use that sort by popularity ranking. And you also have two options down here to limit to available. So if the patron is doing a catalog search and just wants things that are in the library right now and not checked out, they don't want to place any holds, they just want to go pick something up off the shelf, they could limit to available. And again, this is one that you can also do after the fact, but if you're thinking about it before you even do your search, you can see that and you can check it there. And group formats and additions I'm going to come back to and talk about, but if the patron is thinking about it ahead of time, they can also check that here and it will do some grouping of different things. There are two other search tabs here, numeric search and expert search, so I'm also going to come back to those. And I'm going to go ahead and do a search so we can see what the results look like. Here we go. So when we do a search, this is what the results look like. This is what we call the browse results screen. And so we can see all of the results that were relevant to the search terms I put in. We also do have highlighting, so you can see where those terms appear, you know, all of your search phrases. Over here on the left, you have what we call facets. So these are ways that you can continue either drilling down or expanding your search. So if you're not getting quite the results you're looking for, you could look over here and see if any of these facets would help you. So if you wanted to see all the books by J.K. Rowling in the catalog, you could just click on the name there. Or if you wanted to further look into subjects, if you wanted to find all the records with Ron Weasley as a fictitious character, you could go ahead and click on those subjects. And same thing with genre and geography, all those kinds of things. We have some options here across the top. So this dark gray bar that you see has a lot of ways that we can sort of customize what we're seeing here as well. So we've got another search button that just takes us back so that we can do a new search if we are done with this search. We can go to the advanced search screen. So if we needed to add some things to this, we can go right to the advanced search screen. You also have this option up here, though, to refine my original search, and that will take you back to advanced search as well. You can change your sorting here. So if you didn't do it ahead of time, you can always change your sort here. You can click on show more details, and I think by default NC Cardinal actually has the more details showing. So then we get this information. So we get some publisher, you know, some things from the MARC record here. We can see our format icon. And then we get information about the libraries that are holding this, or some of the libraries holding it. It's probably not a comprehensive list, and where the things are in those libraries. So you can get that information. And you can also see how many are available in the whole consortium, or if you're searching at a lower level, your system or your branch, you would see those as well. And you have the options here to place a hold and add to my list. And we're going to come back to these features later on. But if, you know, I know that this is what I want to place a hold on, I can just go ahead and do that right here. And then if I didn't want to see all of this stuff, I could come back up to this button and click on show fewer details. And that will close up all that information. And then we just get this more simplified list of things in our browse results. We do have the option here to limit to available items. So again, if I didn't think about doing that ahead of time, I can go ahead and just click that at this point. And anything that you do here in this dark gray bar, you don't have to go back and click search. You can just wait a few seconds and it will refresh your page and take the action that you had done with the checkboxes. If I were limited to a system or a branch level when I did my initial search, and then I wanted to see the whole consortium, I could just click on this checkbox, show results from all libraries. Now, I did my search at the consortium level, so I'm already seeing that. But so without having to redo my search to look at the whole consortium, I could just check this box, wait for the page to refresh, and then it will show the results from all the libraries in the consortium. So that's handy too. And then we have this group formats and additions option. And the group formats and additions allows you, or makes the system rather, group together like things. So if you think about, like here, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, we can see it grouped up 3 bibs. We had that result that had several different things, and it matched up 3 of them as being the same. It takes out basically all the punctuation and spaces and capitalization and puts together the title from the 245A and the author's name. So that squishes it together and says all of these are the same. So if you think about a patron wanting, say, something that's been in publication for a really long time, you know, your things that people get assigned in school, and you may have multiple versions of that. So think about like Pride and Prejudice, and maybe you've got a cover from, you know, 1965, and then you've got a cover with the BBC miniseries with Colin Firth on it, and you've got one with Keira Knightley on it, and you've got one that came out last year. And a patron maybe just wants a copy of Pride and Prejudice, and they don't care which one. So grouping formats and editions would put all of those together. So then the patron would be able to place a hold, and it would cover all of those bibs that it had put together in the grouping. And so the patron doesn't have to decide, or the patron doesn't have to think about, you know, well, do I need to place a hold on every single one of these so that I get the first copy available? They could just group the results, place a hold, and then they're done. So it's pretty helpful for that. And then if I wanted to see what 3 bibs got grouped up, I could just click on the title here, and it would take me to another browse results list, but this list only contains those 3 bibs that were in my grouping. So I could go and look at more details about those, or I could place holds on individual ones from here, or add them to lists. And then I always have this option here to return to my group search results. So this is what we call a meta record. So the meta record is when we group our results. And if there were multiple formats, because sometimes you may have, you know, a book and an audio book and the DVD and maybe a large print copy, and those would all be grouped up together because it's grouping formats and editions. And in that case, if a patron places a hold, and we'll look at this later when we look at placing holds, the patron would have the opportunity to choose a format if they wanted to. Same with language. If there were multiple languages represented in this grouping, they would have the option to choose which language they wanted. And if they didn't care, they don't have to choose anything, and it would just give them a random something that was available. But so that can be a really handy feature for patrons. Now, if I want more information, so I just ungrouped it, so I'm back to my original list of 4 here. And if I want to see more information about this particular record, I just click on the title. And this is what we call the detailed record. So I can see more information. So I still get the title, an author, and illustrator, my format. And then I can see the number of available copies. And again, if I were at a branch instead of the consortium level, I would see multiple lines here of how many copies are available at branch 1 and how many copies are in system and branch 1. So I'd see all of that here. Current holds, so I can see there's 8 holds on 15 copies here. And if I wanted to jump quickly to the other formats and editions, I could do that. And then if I continue scrolling down, I get location information, and these branch names are clickable, and if you click on them, it takes you to information about that branch. So link to the library's website, the hours that they're open, contact information for that library, and then the relationship that it's in. So this is part of System 1. And then I also get information about call number. So I can see the call number here. Then you've got a link for text. So if a patron, instead of, say, writing down using the little pieces of paper and golf pencils or whatever you have for patrons to write down call numbers, they could choose to text the call number to their phone. So they would then be prompted to put in their mobile carrier and their phone number, and it would text the title and the author and the call number and the barcode shelving location, so that the patron could take their phone then into your stacks and find the material that way. And then of course we also see barcode, shelving location, and the status of the material. And if it were checked out, none of these copies are checked out, but if it were, then there would be a date in the due date column, so the patron would get an idea of what when this might be returned. Continuing down, we get more information from record details. So again, from the MARC record, all of these things are drawn from that. For content and other details, subjects, and you could click ahead to any of these subjects, just like when we were looking at the facets on the browse results page. So I could see other results that were similar. And then you have some other things down here. If there were more information that you might find with summaries, Shelf Browser takes, depending on the level you're looking at, it will basically just show you what's around it on the shelf. So if a patron kind of wanted to have a similar experience to walking through your stacks, they could look here at that. And of course, I'm looking at the consortium level, so this is going to show me whatever's around it in the whole consortium. So like up here, I see something from branch 3, even though, so here's my original thing here in the middle, and I can see what's around it. So if I were just at a particular branch, it would only show me results from that branch. And then if you have savvy patrons who might want to look at the MARC record, that's down here at the bottom. And it just shows the MARC. Scrolling back up to the top, over here on the right, we also have some actions that the patron can take. So they can place a hold or add something to a list. And again, I'm coming back to these later. But if the patron wanted to print out this record or email it to themselves for future reference, or they wanted to email it to someone else, hey, look at this cool thing I found at the library, they can choose those options here. They can also disable the highlighting. So I have this, you know, all my search phrases still, search terms still highlighted, so I could disable them. And that would just refresh, and now nothing is highlighted. So if they're annoyed by that, they can take it away, and then they can re-enable it if they want to. And also then there's this permalink option. So if you take a look up here at the URL that's at the top, I can see, you know, the very simple training1.ncardinal.org, so forth. But then there's all of this long string that includes my search terms and some other stuff. And if I were, say, to put this into a works cited page, or I wanted to, you know, send it to someone or reference it in the future, that's kind of a lot of gobbledygook. So the permalink will change your URL here to a shorter one, and this is a permanent link to this particular bib record. So if you needed to get back to this same exact bib record in the future, this permalink would always take you there. And the key thing here on the permalink is that it's the record/number. That's what we call the TCN or bib ID, the title control number. And when we're looking at the staff side next week, we're going to see how important that one is, because if you wanted to make sure that multiple people are looking at the same bib record, you want to make sure you're looking at that TCN. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go and just do a system search. Okay, so here's what it looks like when you're doing at a different level than the consortium level. So here in my summary, I get both the consortium and the system. So how many copies are available in my system, because that's where I did my search level, or the consortium. And if I went into the record, the same thing up here for available copies. I see that I have 1 of 9 copies available in system 1, which is my system where I did my search. But there are 5 of 15 available in the whole consortium. And so all I'm seeing in my results now are things from example system 1. But if I wanted to see results from the entire consortium, I could just click on this show, and it would give me everything. And then if I wanted to go back to just looking at system 1, now that one has the link for show. And so I could just go back to that. So I'm going to go back then to advanced search. And I mentioned that there's 2 other tabs here. And so we're going to look at those. The numeric search allows searching by things with numbers in them. So ISBN is kind of the default in the dropdown, but you've also got ISSN for the journals, magazines. You can do a shelf browse. If they want to look up by Library of Congress control number, they can. TCN is that unique number. So again, some of these are probably not maybe ever going to be used or really more helpful for staff probably than patrons, item barcode. But that ISBN one can be really handy, especially when patrons, you know, maybe on Amazon or at their local bookstore or their friend's house, you found a book, and usually what they write down is the ISBN if they write down a number. So you could just come in here and enter that into this field, and it would see if the library had it. And then there is expert search. And this is really a search for catalogers. So this allows you to do a search based on particular mark tags and subfield values. So if you wanted to put in, you know, particular things, a 100, you know, subfield A, and then, you know, the value. You can add multiple rows. So if you needed to do complex searching, you could do that. So pretty much, unless you have patrons who are catalogers, this is probably only going to be something staff uses, and maybe not even very often then, but it definitely is an option if it's something that's helpful for you. So those are the other advanced search options. And then the last kind of search that we have, so we talked about basic search and then advanced search, and the last kind we have is browse the catalog. And browsing the catalog just allows patrons to browse bib records and search for things. So they have the option to browse for titles, authors, subjects, or series. And you can do different levels. You can search their whole consortium or just a system or branch level. And then click browse. And what I get then is a list of things that match my search terms. So I did a search for Nora Roberts. In this particular training catalog, there are no Nora Roberts. So it shows me the closest thing. I know. The training server is called Concerto because most of the things in it are music. So we're gonna see a lot of composers, and but there is Harry Potter, there's some Ready Player One, and some other things. But,
Yeah, I've loaded a few bibs, but
yeah, but most of it is still music. So yeah, so it thinks that the closest to the search terms I put in was William Roberts, and so it would give me that. But I can see who else around. So if I wanted to browse around, I could see who else also is around. And I could go back. So if I even wanted to see more, you know, I could continue going up. So maybe I want Sergei Rachmaninoff. Or I could go forward, you know, and so just browsing in either direction that you can do. And then if you find what you're looking for, you could click on it, and then it would take you to, you know, basically a browse results page with all of the bibs that match from your browsing search. Another thing that's good to note is that a number of years ago, the Evergreen community decided to make the catalog what we call use what we call responsive design. So that means it is optimized for mobile devices and is responsive to whatever size screen you're using. So instead of maintaining, you know, different apps on all different platforms and having to keep all of those up to date, instead they made the catalog so that no matter what size you make your screen, so if you're on a tablet or you're on your phone, it will automatically kind of change up how it returns the information to you so that it's in a easier to use format. So now instead of all my things being spread out horizontally, they're all up, you know, vertical, so that I can see them easily without having to scroll around too much. So that's a nice thing to know, that it will automatically change depending on what size screen you're on. So now we're going to move over to the My Account. So you may have noticed on all of the pages, we've got this button up here in the top right that says My Account. And this is a way that patrons can access and manage things in their own personal accounts. So they can log in here, they can manage holds, create lists, set preferences, all sorts of different things. And so this is the basic page, and I'm going to use a user I set up. And you can see there some hints there: library card number, a username, a PIN or a password. So when you log in, you come to this basic account summary page. And so we can get, when is this account going to expire? So I can get an idea if I need to go to the library and, you know, renew my card. And you get a summary of what you have currently checked out, currently on hold, and ready for pickup. And there's links here to each of those. And you'll notice as we go through training, all of the trainings, that in Evergreen, there is almost always multiple ways to get to the same information. So one of them is here on the account summary page, and I could click on these links for more details. I also have these tabs, and that's what we're going to go through actually to look at all of the different features in the My Account. And then up here on the top right, we also have some links. So there's a links to messages, and that corresponds with this messages tab. My lists, which corresponds to the My Lists tab. And then all of these checked out, on hold, ready for pickup, and charges are links. And those would take me to those various tabs that also give me that information. So it's just, these are helpful up here on the right, because if a patron has gone out of their account summary and they're searching the catalog or something like that, they can always get back to their account information by clicking those links, because those will always be up there on the right. So then also underneath our account summary, we've got charges and payments. So if a patron needs to see, you know, what they have paid in the past, then they can see this here. And they can print a receipt. So if they got a receipt from you when they paid for it at the library and then they lost it, they could always come back to their My Account and they could print or email themselves a receipt. And then if there were any current charges, those would be listed here in the charges section. So let's dig into the details. Under the Messages tab, this is what we call the Patron's Message Center. So if there are system-generated messages, so these would be things automatically made by Evergreen, like that they have a hold available, or overdues, or lost book. Those would all be listed here. But then staff, and we'll look at this when we do training in a couple weeks on the staff side, that staff also have the option to leave patron visible messages, and those also show up here. So that's in the example that I have here. This is one of those. It's a staff left message. And so they could come in here and they could just click on the message and it would show them. So in this case, I left their keys, come pick them up. I can mark it as unread, I can delete it, or I can just go back to my message list. And we'll see next when we do the staff side training that you will also be able to check in and see if they have read or deleted messages from their message center. And then here in the drop down, they can also mark things as read or unread or delete them. So I could just check my box here and choose one of these options.
Can we put in notes that aren't visible to them?
Yes. And obviously those would not show up here. Yes, there are many ways to leave notes and alerts on patron account, and there's only one that allows you to make it patron visible. So, okay. And even then it's a choice. So that's messages. And then next tab over is items checked out. So in this case, we don't have anything checked out, but my items would be listed here if I did, and I would have the option to renew them also. And of course, Evergreen, if the patron is in their OPAC and their My Account, Evergreen is still going to respect all of the proper rules about renewals. So like if it's needed for a hold, it will not renew, or if they've exceeded their allowed renewals, it will not let them renew. So all of that stuff still applies if they try it here in their My Account, as same as if they were in the library talking to you. Now, by default, Evergreen does not keep a circulation history on patron accounts, and that's for their privacy protection and yours. But patrons have the option to opt in to having their circulation history kept. And in that case, they would find it here under items checked out and checkout history, and they'd be listed here. Continuing on to holds. So the holds show all of the items that the patron has placed on hold and their status. So is it available? We've got 3 holds here that are available, so I can see that. Got a couple that are suspended. I'll talk about that more in a minute. And then for all the holds that I have options here in my actions menu that I can take as well. So I can suspend a hold, activate it, or cancel it. I can also show only the available holds. So if I have a giant list of holds and I only want to see the ones that are in the library ready for me to pick up right now, I could click that and it would just show me the things in at the moment. I can always go back to show all. So those are options. Now suspending a hold, you can see I've got a couple here that are suspended. Evergreen allows you to suspend a hold, which basically freezes your place in line. So if a patron has placed a hold and say they're like number 3 on the holds list and their hold didn't come in and they're about to leave on a couple weeks of vacation. So they don't want the hold to come in while they're gone, sit on the shelf, expire, and then get sent back to where it goes or onto the next person. And then they come back from vacation and they have to get back at the bottom of the holds list. So suspending it would just keep them hanging out there. So if they were number 3 on the holds list, when they suspend the hold, they'll just hang out there at number 3. And maybe it'll fill the holds for 1 and 2 and 4, 5, and 6. And then they come back from vacation and they activate that hold. They're still number 3 on the list. So they haven't advanced any, but they also haven't lost their place in line. So that's a handy feature. And patrons have the option to suspend it just indefinitely and then come in here and activate it whenever they want to. Or when they suspend it, they can set an activation date. And we do that over here with the edits. So if I've placed a hold like I have here, and I click on edit, I have some different options here. I can change my pickup library. So if I've changed my mind about where I want to pick this up, I want to get it at a different branch, I can do that. I can set a cancel unless filled by date. So think about, say, like a kid doing a project for school. And the project is due on a particular day, so maybe they don't want the book to come in after that date or after a week before it's due. So they can set cancel unless filled by, and then if the hold is never filled by that date, the hold will automatically be canceled. And then they can choose to activate or suspend the hold. So this hold is suspended. And then they can choose an activation date. If they know the date that they want it to become active again, then they can just select that here. Oops. And then in my status column, I would see that it is activating on the 15th of April. So those are the things with holds. Also with holds history, same thing as with circulation history. Evergreen by default does not keep the holds history, but the patron can opt into that. And in that case, like here, you would see a list of things that you had placed on hold in the past or present. Moving on to account preferences. We have several different options here. So the first thing that comes up is our personal information, but this is where we can set the account preferences allow us to set a whole lot of different kinds of preferences for when we're logged into our My Account. So on this first personal information, we get all the basic information from our patron account. And we have the option to change our password. So that's always a good option if patrons want to make sure that they have a secure password. And they can change their email address. Evergreen is set up to send a lot of notifications via email, and people seem to change email addresses a lot. So this gives them the opportunity to go ahead and keep that email address up to date so they can get the notices at the right place. And then down here with addresses, there is also an option to edit addresses. But it's never a permanent edit. They still would have to come in and show you whatever identification is required. Moving on to notification and anything else, other than those password and email, anything else they want to change, they have to contact you at the library. Notification preferences is the next thing that we can set. And here we can notify, they can choose how they want to be notified when they have holds ready. So by email or by phone. And then if they want to be notified by phone, they can put in a default phone number. If they don't put in a default phone number, it'll pull a phone number from their patron account. But if they want a different phone number to be the one that they're notified by, they can choose that. They can choose to receive text messages, in which case they have to choose their mobile carrier and the phone number. Put in their phone number, and of course they get hints, no spaces, no dashes, and so forth. The reason that you have to choose a phone carrier is because when Evergreen is sending out the text message notices, they're actually emails to a phone number. And every carrier formats those differently. So Evergreen needs to know which carrier they have so that it knows how to properly format the text message to go to the phone so that it'll be received by the patron. Sometimes with things like the track phones or those prepaid phones that you might buy at the store, they will piggyback on major carriers. So the phones aren't going to tell you who the carrier is. But you can look that up. Freecarrierlookup.com. So freecarrierlookup.com, you can just put in the phone number and then do a search and it'll tell you the carrier, because it's also different. Like, you know, a track phone in one part of your state will use one carrier, and in another part of your state or even another town in your area might use a different carrier's cell tower. So it's not a universal thing like all track phones piggyback on AT&T. It really depends on where you are. So this is super helpful for that, because you can just put in the phone number, do a little math, and then it'll tell you where, which carrier it is. So freecarrierlookup.com. The other option in notification preferences is to email checkout receipts by default. So Evergreen has the ability to email patrons their receipts instead of printing them out. So if they want to always have that be their default, and of course this is something that you can change on a case-by-case basis, but if by default, if nothing is selected when you check something out to the patron and they want to receive an email receipt, they could check this box. The search and history preferences are where they can set some information for how they view the catalog when they're logged into their My account. So search hits per page. By default, when we look at that browse results screen, we get 10 before we have to go to the next page. But if they want to do more scrolling and less page flipping, you could set that up to as high as 50. And if you wanted to do less scrolling and more page flipping, you could do fewer search hits per page. So you could go down to as few as 5. And then the little question mark, if you hover over that, it tells you what it is, or if you click on it. Preferred search location, this is going to default to whatever their home library is, but if they always want to be searching the consortium level when they are in the catalog instead of your branch or your system level, they could set that. And they can set a preferred pickup location, and this would only have the locations available to them in your system. But if, you know, their home library is branch 1, but maybe they work closer to branch 2, and so they want that to be the default pickup location, then they could set that here. And we'll see on a hold by hold basis, they can always change any of these defaults. So if normally their default is example branch 2, but for a particular hold they want it to be example branch 1, they would be able to change that at the time they place the hold. This is just setting a default. And then here's where you can choose to opt into keeping your history. So keep your history of checked out items or your history of holds. And then you have an option to skip warning when adding to temporary book lists. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So I'm coming back to this one. So those are all of the search and history preferences. And then the last account preference is My List preferences. And we're going to talk about My Lists next. That's the next tab over from account preferences. But here in the My Lists preferences, we can set how many lists we want to see on a particular page. And again, 10 is the default. You can't go lower than 10, but you can go up to as many as 25 before you have to flip to the next page. And then if you have a list open and you would like to, normally you would see 10 items on your list before having to flip to the next page. But if you wanted to see up to as many as 50, you could do that before having to flip. So more scrolling, less flipping. So that's all of the account preferences. So My Lists is a handy place where patrons can keep lists of whatever they want. So they could keep lists of things that they want to place on hold someday or things that they want to read someday. They could keep a list of things they've already read. They could keep a list of things they want to recommend to other people. Whatever they want, sky's the limit. They can create lists for those. And patrons have the option to share their lists or not. So a shared list would give the patron a URL that they could then share with other people. So a link that they could give to others. Or, as you'll notice down here in the My Existing Lists section, there's also an RSS feed button. So if someone wanted to subscribe to their list, they could choose to do that with an RSS feed. So if we want to create a new list, I'm thinking about summer. So you give your list a name. The list description is optional. So maybe if you're going to share your list, you might want to make a description so that people who look at your, people who you give the link to would know what the list is supposed to be about. But you don't have to. And then you can decide to make the list shared or not. And when you create a list, then it drops down here into your list of existing lists. So I have this older list that was here, the December reading list, but I also have this summer reading list that I just made. And once you make a list, you can always change your mind about your sharing options. So this December reading list was shared, and I could choose to hide it if I didn't want to share it anymore. And for this summer reading list that I just made, I could choose to share that because I did not choose to share that before. I can delete the list if I don't need it anymore. I can download the list in CSV format, so that's comma separated values. So if you wanted to put your list, for instance, into Excel or some other spreadsheet program so that you could, move stuff around or get rid of columns or make fancy charts, whatever you might want to do, you could download that so that you could open it in Excel. And you can also make a list your default list. So if you forget to choose a list when you're adding something to a list, it would put it on your default list automatically. And then if we've shared the list, like this December one, we do have an HTML view, and I will come back to this one. So that's how we make our lists. And once you have a list, you can click on it. And you can always edit then your name and description if you want to. And this list contains no items, but I can see what it's going to give me in my list: title, author, call number, and so forth. I can make notes. And if I look at this December reading list, for instance, so I've got checkboxes, so I could highlight one or more of these things. And I've got an actions menu then. So I can place hold on any of the things that I've checked in my list, or I can remove them from the list. So if I don't need them to be on my list anymore, I could take them off. The little checkbox that's in the column header area will select everything on your list, or unchecking it will unselect everything in your list. So if you wanted to do everything at once, you just have to do that instead of clicking each one individually. You also have over here on the very far right an edit button. And that allows us to put some notes, and it's a free text field. So I can see in my notes column, for instance, I put a 5 stars as my message for one of these. So using the edit will open up a free text box next to each of the items on your list. So, or like this one where I already had a note, it does another one. So I could leave a second note if I wanted to. So you could use this to, leave notes to yourself. You could use this like I did on the first one to leave your rating, or you could type in your review about it if you wanted to. So it's just a free text box. So whatever you want to use it for, it is there. that is the structure of notes. And you also have a sorting option up here. So like our search results from searching the catalog, we can sort our list by title, author, alphabetical in forward or reverse order, publication date, and popularity. I can also click on any of these column headers and it would reorder alphabetically in that way. So now they're alphabetical by title, or I could click it a second time and it will put it in reverse order by title. Do the same thing with authors and publication date. So now that we have some lists, how do we add things to our list? There are multiple ways to do that. So you can do it from any of the searches. And so if I'm just in my browser results and I know which one I want to place on my list, I could just go over here to add to my list. Now I don't even need to click on that. I just can hover over it and then I get a list of my lists. So I can see the summer reading list. I can see the December reading list that I had previously. But I also have options for see all. So if I have more lists than I see on this right here, I could see all the lists. But if I've done a search and I don't already have a list, and while I'm looking at my search results, I think, you know what, I should make a list for this. You can go ahead and add to a new list, in which case it will just ask you to give the list a name and all the things about making a list, and then it will automatically put that item on your list. You also have an option for a temporary list. So if I'm just, wanting to put a bunch of stuff, say, on hold, and I don't really need a permanent list to be kept around, I just want to put a bunch of stuff on a list, place them on hold, and then be done. Or I'm going to, print my screen or something like that. I could just add to a temporary list. And so when I do that, and it's truly a temporary list, so you add something to your temporary list, and if I go up here to my lists, then I get in my existing lists one that's a temporary list as opposed to the save lists that are farther down on the screen. And on my temporary list options, I can place a hold, remove from the list, or move these items to a permanent list. So I could, say, oh yeah, I really do want this on a real list, and say go, because otherwise, as soon as I log off my account, that temporary list is gone. Now under account preferences, when we looked at the search and history preferences, there's an option for skipping a warning when adding to a temporary book list. I'm a little puzzled because that's not checked and we didn't get our warning. But normally when you do not have this checked, when you add something to a temporary list, it takes you to another page that says, hey, this list is temporary. As soon as you log off, it's going to go away. And you say, okay. And then it puts it on a temporary list and takes you to that. But if you check this box here, then when you do that, it will not give you that warning. It'll just add it to your temporary list. So that's what that preference option is. So let me go back to my search results. Okay, now you don't, unfortunately, when you are adding things to your list, you don't get an indication that you have added it already to a list. So you do kind of have to remember which ones you put on the list. And then if I want to go back to my lists, I just come up here to the top right and click on my lists. I can open up my summer reading list and then see my things here. So if I wanted to then take some actions, place them on hold, or take one or more off the list, I can do that. I can leave some notes if I need to do that. And that is my lists. Now, if you have a shared list, you have this, in addition to the RSS feed icon there, you have an HTML view link. And what that does is takes you to what looks like a browse results page. But I can see, here's my title of my list. If I had a description, it would also be here. And then this is only the things that are on my list. So I can see that. The URL that's up here, the link, this is what then you could use to give to people if you wanted to share your list with them. So the lists aren't publicly searchable, so you couldn't just randomly find somebody's list. You do have to have the link. So, but this is the link that a patron then could use to give to other people or to put on their website or their blog. This is also if you wanted to make lists, staff-made lists that you would put on your website. You could do that by logging in with your staff account as a patron, making a list, and then copying the link there and putting that in your website. You also have an option up here next to the search things to search only within the chosen list. So if you have a really long list of things and you wanted to see if something in particular is on that list already, like maybe it's your list of things that you already read and you wanted to see if you had read something already, then you could do, you know, a search within the list. And it would only show you, of course, this is in both, but it would show you then the things that you had searched on within that list. Also, if you had chosen to share a list and then you change your mind and you hide your list, if somebody has that URL, it won't work. So once you hide your list, it's nobody can find it anymore. All right, then let's look at placing holds as well. Oh, so when I said multiple ways that you could add things to lists, the same thing, the add to list link there that we saw in the catalog search is the same link when you're looking at the detailed results. So whether you're looking at browse results or detailed results, the add to my lists is the same in both places. So if I want to place things on hold, of course, I've got this option here when if I've made a list, I have the option here to place a hold. If I do that from here, it takes me to, this is the hold confirmation screen. So, and this covers several bases here. If a material has been cataloged with parts, so this is, often we think of these as like issues of a magazine, if a library catalogs magazines, or if they split up a season of a DVD show, a season of a show on DVD into different discs so that a patron can place a hold on different discs or grouping of discs. Then it may be show up here with parts, and for some reason something on here is cataloged with a part. So this is what it looks like if there is a part on the account, then they would have to choose a part. But normally you would not see that. You would see the pickup location, so you could verify that will be either the patron's home library, or if they have set a default pickup location, it would have that. But of course, they can change it on a hold by hold basis. So if normally pick up at branch 1, and for this one, I want to pick up at branch 2, I can do that. And then again, notify notifications. So I don't have an email address on this account, so I can't actually have email as my default. Phone number, if I had put in a default phone number, it would show up here. But otherwise, you could just put in your own phone number. Same thing with the text. You still have to select your mobile carrier and put in the number there. And the patron also has the option to suspend the hold at the time that they place it. So if they're placing the hold and they know they don't want it right away, they could check that suspend this hold button or checkbox and then just have it suspended right away. They could also set the activation date. So that if it wasn't going to be suspended indefinitely, but they had a definite date that they wanted it to become active, they could put that in here also at the same time. And they do get the hint, they have to put it 2-digit month / 2-digit date / 4-digit year, or it will not work. Aha. Now, if everything was fine with this patron's account, you would get a green message that said hold was successfully placed. But if there are problems, this is what happens. You get a bolded black message that says hold was not successfully placed, and then it tells you why. So in this case, this user already has a hold on this particular item. Sometimes it may say the problem is that the patron's account has expired, or they've exceeded their maximum fine limit. So the patron can get a good indication at a glance of why they can't place this hold. So I could say cancel, and then go back and find something else to place a hold on, because maybe I forgot I had placed that on hold 3 months ago. So that's how you place holds from here in your existing lists. From your searching, you've got that place hold button here with a green check mark, and that will place the hold. And this is placing what we call a title level hold. So that's a hold on the bib or the title and any available copies that are attached to that bib. And we'll talk about this more in the staff side training about how Evergreen decides on holds. But you don't have to worry about picking particular library locations or anything like that. And the patron doesn't have to think about it. All they have to do is use this place hold option, and the system will take care of everything automatically. That's not the one I meant to look at. So again, here we are placing our hold. And this is what happens then when it's okay. The hold was successfully placed. And the patron can click continue, and it takes them back to their search results. So if they wanted to place more things on hold from their search results, or they wanted to go and do a new search, then they could do that. Now, if you are placing a hold using group formats and additions, so we've got those grouped together, what we call the meta record. We also have the place hold option. Now from here, we don't have an add to list button. So that's important to note, because you can't place a group of bibs in a list. So if you wanted to add to list, you'd want to go ahead and click on the title so that you can see what 3 bibs are here and add those to the lists. But I can go ahead and place a hold over this grouping of results. So in this case, this takes us to a page where we have a little bit more information. Now in this case, it's just one format and one language, so there's really not much to choose. But if this were a grouping where we had a book and an audio book and a large print and a DVD, maybe music, the patron would have the option then to select the format or multiple formats that they wanted. So say they want a print copy, not audiobook copy, and there was a book and a large print, and they don't care. They could select both of those options and not the audiobook options. And so it will fill a hold with one of those print options. And then the rest of this is just the same. And we can get to this same kind of thing. So if I have not grouped my formats and additions, and I go into something, I'm not going to it, but I place a hold. I have this link here that I didn't mention before that is advanced hold options. And that basically allows you to change your hold into a meta record hold right here. So you get all of the formats and languages then, and you can choose one or more of those formats from here, or you can go back to your basic hold options. And then again, I can see up here that my count for items on hold has gone up from 5 to 7. And I can come to my holds tab here then and see the new things that are placed on hold. The suspended holds, as you can see now, always go to the bottom. So no matter when they were placed in your sort of list of placing holds, suspended ones are always going to be at the bottom. Available ones are going to be at the top, usually. And then everything else is kind of interspersed. So any questions about placing holds?
Is it possible to override accidentally location where the patron wants to pick up their book?
Is it possible for the patron to do that?
No, for the staff.
No.
Okay.
I mean, changing the pickup location will be an option on the staff side, but it is not something that you could easily change accidentally. You would have to be trying to do it. Yeah.
And as a staff person, could I put hold on multiple copies of basically the same book?
That is an option now in the version of Evergreen that you are on, the live version. That is an option.
Okay.
And I don't know, April, do you all have that set up at a particular amount, or is that a library choice?
I don't know that we have a limit on it, as far as I'm aware.
Okay. It requires a particular permission to be added. And then there's a couple of library settings that will say, you know, what's the maximum, you know, that a staff member can put on hold. So
yeah, we
those
don't
are all
have
different.
we don't have a consortium limit, and circulators have that permission. So, or
Okay.
maybe circulators or Circ Super. I'm not sure which, but I
Okay.
can check.
Any other questions?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Well, that's the OPAC.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And we will
Great.
see when we do the in-person training, and that on the staff side, and maybe you've already logged into the staff accounts and seen this, but searching and all of that kind of stuff on the staff side is exactly the same. You get a little bit more information on the staff side, but otherwise it returns the way that it looks and returns information is all exactly the same. So that's nice.
So thank you all so much for your time and attention today, and thanks so much, Debbie.
My pleasure.